everybody, welcome back to my channel. I currently have all the books that I have currently read this year in 2024. Now, hilariously, I set myself a reading goal of 35 books this year. I currently have read 21 already and it is only just the start of April. I don't know what's happened. I'm in like a good reading mojo at the moment. I think I've just changed my reading habits a little bit. I'm reading a bit more in the evenings as my wind down, which is obviously working. And I'm still reading a little bit in the mornings as well as I have my morning coffee. And it's just meaning I'm reading much more and I'm loving it. And I've had some great influences as well. First of all, I want to thank Celine from Stuff Celine Does. She runs the Book Wanderers, which are a fab group of people who get together on Discord and talk all things books, and they have seriously influenced my reading habits, especially in the last 3 or so months. And also as well, I have a little book club as well, which I meet up with in person, who have some lovely people in it, and they have definitely been getting me reading more. I've also been consuming a lot more audiobooks, which I think has really helped me in upping the numbers of books I've been reading. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my laptop, because that has got my Goodreads on it, and that will have all of the books that I've read, not just physically but also audiobooks as well. And then I also have my stack in this bag here. At the start of this year, I did a little kind of wrap up from 2023 plus all the things that I want to read in 2024, goals wise, if I want to read any specific series at all. So let's start off with the series that I wanted to try and reread and complete this year, and that is a series of unfortunate events. And I started reading this as a child and as a young teenager, and I'm pretty sure I only got to about the 5th or the 6th book, and there are 13 books in the series. And I'd kept my beautiful set that my parents had bought me, and I wanted to give it a go and try and read it. So the first book that I read in 2024 was The Bad Beginning. This was interesting, kind of getting back into the swing of it. I think I didn't realise kind of the format of it. I didn't realise how I was gonna kind of be with the whole fact that there are points when they tell you what words mean, and as an adult that was very jarring to get used to. I think as well, like, I didn't realise that the writing is quite flat in terms of a middle grade book. I think there are other books that I read as a child that were probably much better written than these, and that's really sad to say because I loved these with a passion. I do love that it's quite dark, it's quite funny. This one does always stick in my mind. I remembered this really well before I went back into reading this. So this was a 3.5. It was just nice to just get back into the series, but yeah, I think it was interesting realising that this is not very strong actually in terms of writing style. The next book that I read in January was The Little Book of Hygge by Mike Wiking. Really don't think I said that right. This was very much I bought it because I liked the cover book. Now this is definitely one of the prettiest books I own, absolutely. This was a 3-star read for me. I didn't particularly think that this book was worth the nearly 300 pages that this is. I think there were some absolutely fab tips in here, and some that I think what I was already implementing, but others that I then was like, I will definitely implement this. But I think some of it was a lot of repetition. There are some great recipes in there, and this is definitely one I'm probably going to keep as like a coffee book style, and one that I probably will kind of dive back into. But I don't think, in terms of how much you're going to get out of this, I don't think you're going to get a huge amount out of this. But I did read this at the start of January, and it was just the perfect seasonal read. So in terms of that, it did fairly well in my eyes. Now the next book that I read, I was actually one that I brought on from 2023, and that was Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. Now this was, I think this was a 3-star read. This was 3.5 stars. This was my first Rupi Kaur. I really like her performance poetry. I really love watching her perform. I don't know how well that translated in book form. It has some beautiful parts to it. Particularly the healing chapter was one that really spoke to me. And I don't know whether it's because I've never been really heartbroken or in a abusive relationship that it didn't really kind of speak to me as much as I wanted it to with the rest of the book. But I did just feel like the really short poems, they were more like statements, really. They were like quotes. I didn't really think that they would deserve the very small space that took on a whole page, but there were some other beautiful poems in there. In book form, it just didn't work for me. However, you know, I will absolutely continue loving her performance poetry, so I don't think this is a representation on that. And I think as well, I'm really used to classic poetry where there is a bit more substance to it, and I think it was just a bit jarring going from that to this, but I still really enjoyed it. I don't know if I would necessarily buy any more of her books, but I would absolutely go and watch her perform. The next book that I read was the second book in the Series of Unfortunate Events series, which is The Reptile Room. This one I gave a 3.5 stars to. Again, I didn't overly love this. I think it was because this one felt very patronizing in the way that this was written. I don't think it was particularly, it felt like we were being treated quite stupidly, especially in kind of how things were explained. And it kind of left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth. The second half of the book though, I did really enjoy, and I did get into a lot more. It's just really interesting, kind of words are explained to us, but like writing styles are explained, and on the next one that I will talk about in a little bit, grammar is explained more. And I think it's just a really interesting, again, getting used to this whole thing of everything is being kind of very laid out for us and our imagination is not kind of being stretched. But yeah, as I said, the second half of the book did save this for me. The next book that I read was an audiobook, and it was my first 5-star read of the year, which I was very excited about because I was getting a little worried, because I think this was, when did I have this? I finished this in February. So I'd gone through January and nearly all of Feb with no kind of high star reads. But this was brilliant. So Our Hideous Progeny is by C.E. McGill. And I'm completely blown away that this is a debut novel. I'm just completely blown away. And she's so young as well. I just thought this was so complex and clever. I liked that it was a take on the Gothic genre in a completely different way. This was not a Frankenstein retelling, even though Frankenstein is mentioned and obviously she's related to Frankenstein. I didn't feel like this was a, I'm gonna completely take this and do the same sort of thing. I liked the fact as well that she was really interesting. She's in a pretty much loveless marriage, and she has had a lot of hidden feelings going on. She makes a great friendship with her husband's sister, and I love that relationship. The second half of the book was quite sciencey, and I do get put off by a lot of science jargon in books, but I do think that this really, it wasn't science heavy too much. I was able to kind of still enjoy the story without thinking I was getting a science lesson. I fully just realised as well that the next couple of books, including the one I just talked about, are either audiobooks or Kindle books. So I've not got them to show you, but I'll pop a little thing here as I usually do if I don't have the book. So the next book that I read was on my Kindle, and I finished it from last year, and this was Kakeyi. I'm really bad at names, I'm so sorry, by Vaishnavi Patel. This is a retelling of Kakeyi, oh gosh, who basically was a queen in India, and she is supposed to have been the cause of a big kind of war that ended up happening. And essentially it's how all the gods are kind of like playing with humans and their impact and their control over them. I think it's just a really interesting thing. I came in with no idea about this story at all, so this was really interesting for me to learn about. I find, you know, different kind of retellings and mythology really interesting, especially Greek mythology, but I thought this was so interesting to kind of learn about. And the fact that this is written from a female point of view, the story is told from a man's point of view, and it's very much the fact that she's evil and she was working her powers over her son and all of this. For it to be told from a woman's point of view, and maybe the reasons why she did things, and also the other characters in this, why they do things, was so interesting. It was like feminism, but on a completely, like a different way of telling a feminist story. She has also got a new book out, which is about one of the river gods, and I want to pick that up. So this was a 4.5 star for me. I just thought it just got a bit slow at one point, kind of in the middle, but it really picked up after that, and I really, really enjoyed this. I would definitely read from Vaishnavi Patel again. Okay, the next book is another audiobook, and this is American Dirt by Janine Cummins. Now, I know there's quite a bit of controversy around this book, so I'm not going to touch on that, because I feel like if you want to read about it, there is stuff online and there is a lot of kind of good kind of debates kind of going on about it, so feel free to do that. But I wanted to kind of just do my review how I always do about the actual book itself. I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I thought the audiobook narration was fantastic. I did kind of feel like it lost momentum about 3/4 of the way through. I'd been gripped all the way up until then, so I think that's mainly why I knocked off 1 star. But I thought that the characters were so brilliantly fleshed out. I did love the smattering of Spanish in there as well. I thought that really kind of built the world for us. But also as well, I did feel like some of the characters, what they were saying sometimes felt more like a political statement and the author's voice coming through rather than the characters. So I think that's the only thing I'm going to really kind of say about kind of everything that's kind of gone on with this book. I did feel like it just lost some of the realism of what they were saying. Yeah, but apart from that, I did really, really enjoy it, and it definitely broke my heart a little bit as well, which is my favorite kind of book. If you've been watching my book reviews and, you know, talking about different books and stuff, I just love a heartbreaking book, and this did break my heart a little bit. Okay, we're back on the physical books now, and the next book that I read was A Spell of Good Things by Ayobami Adebayo. Again, I'm really sorry if I butchered that name. She is one of those kind of must-read authors for me. I read Stay With Me last year, I think. And that was, oh my gosh, that is probably one of my all-time favorite books, because it broke my heart. And I think I was expecting this to do a similar thing, and it didn't quite do that. I gave this 4 stars. It's definitely on the higher side rating for me, because I do find that she is just amazing at suddenly revealing something and it almost like knocking the wind out of you. I physically gasp at her writing, and I did do this a bit in this, not as much as in Stay With Me. I do think this is definitely worth a read. This basically follows 2 people from very different backgrounds. I think this is set in, is it Nigeria? Yeah, very different lives in Nigeria, and how their paths and their stories end up crossing and intertwining without them actually really properly meeting. This was a long-listed for the Booker Prize last year, and I can totally see why. I did find that some of the writing was quite dense. I didn't really fully fall into this as much as I did with Stay With Me. I love how she builds her characters. The second part of the book in particular just blew me away. This was part of the Canongate book club read-along that they do as well. I would just highly recommend her books. I think she's a fab author, and I cannot wait to see what she does next. Okay, moving on to my second 5-star read of the year, and it is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. Oh my gosh. I now know that TJ Klune is one of my favourite authors. I have so much to say, but it just can't put it into words. It makes me a bit teary actually, because I don't cry easily at books, but Under the Whispering Door had me in tears, and this very nearly did. And this is saying something, like the tears were in my eyes but they didn't fall. So this is about Linus Baker, who is a inspector for orphanages. Now these orphanages have magical, oh, I've got a hair near my eye, that's very uncomfortable. Have magical children, and people who are magic and magical creatures are under very kind of close inspection in this world. He has to report on essentially the 7 most dangerous children at this orphanage, and just the way that he builds his characters. Oh my gosh, there was a couple of ones in particular. The humour is my type of humour. It's very sarcastic and dry. I like the way that he infuses romance into this without it being romance heavy. I think that's the thing that I really like, because I'm not particularly a romance reader, but the way that this love story is put into this book, oh, I just love it. Because it's just not in your face, and it's just how it's real. It feels really real. All the characters feel real, the world feels real. Amazing. The second book is coming out this year and I cannot wait. The next book that I read was Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. Now this is the author of All the Light We Cannot See, which was a book again that I really, really enjoyed. This was another 5-star read for me, and I didn't expect it to be. It's quite a big book. I think it's about 600 pages. Yeah, about 600-ish pages. The thing that I've realised again with Doerr, I'm really sorry if I said that name wrong, with his writing is the way he's able to put multiple characters and their timelines, and you jump back and forth and it just works, and I just was so involved with it. This is essentially a story that covers, you know, different times, and it kind of goes all the way from 15th century Constantinople to the far future. I just find that his characters are so well fleshed out. The writing is beautiful, just so beautifully done, and not in a showy offy way. It still grips you without being kind of all chaos and action and things like that. It's just really beautiful writing, and I found that with All the Light We Cannot See. So he was able to do it again with this book. I know people who, I was reading this with a couple of people who in the Book Wanderers Club, and they didn't get on with it as much as I did. But then again, I'm currently reading Beartown, which is a similar sort of like multiple POV book, and I'm not getting on with that, but they loved it. So I don't know what it is. The one thing I found really interesting was how it delves into like some of the classics, especially like some of the Greek classics and like the Odyssey and things like that. It made me really inspired to pick those up, which is something that hasn't been really high on my list, but I've wanted to get to. But this in particular made me want to pick up those classics. This stacking situation over here is not going very well. I feel like I'm gonna have to make a second pile in a minute. Okay, next we have the third book in the Series of Unfortunate Events series. This is The Wide Window. Now I'm pretty sure, let me get my review. This was a 4-star for me. Up until this point, this was my favourite book out of all the ones that had been done so far. I felt like it was really settling into itself now, like the story and the characters are really kind of getting their flow. This is very grammar heavy. This is like the grammar book. I did find that I didn't remember this one as much as the other ones, as this was a reread. And I did find it enjoyable to rediscover. It's great fun, it's a bit silly, but it's Lemony Snicket, so what do you expect? I've got 2 audiobooks now. So the first one is The ABC Murders. This was one I hadn't intended to pick up. I was listening to Clara and the Sun, and then I had to return it because it wouldn't let me renew my audiobook on my Libby app. For some weird reason, I don't know why. So I picked this up as like a little in-between while I was waiting for Clara. It was 5 stars. It's Poirot. I love Poirot. He can do no wrong in my eyes. I liked this dramatization of it. I think it was a BBC one. I just had a lot of fun. It was a complex case. It pushes him to the limits. I'm not really going to reveal any more than that because it gets a bit spoiler free. And even though I know the story very, very well, it was still really enjoyable to listen to. Okay, this next audiobook was a very strong read for me. This was a 5-star. No, this was a 4.5 star. So this is What You Are Looking For Is in the Library by Michiko Aoyama, I think. I'm really sorry, I'm really bad with names. This was one that, again, I was listening to or reading with a couple of people with the Book Wanderers Club. Oh my gosh, it's so calm and sweet. You follow, I think it's 5 or 6 people, and how essentially their lives are affected by this community library. And it's got slight kind of magical-ish realism to it. It's not very obvious, it's just a little sprinkling of it. But I love the fact that all these people were suffering with something or problems, and how these books and this place ends up basically saving them, and it's just really lovely. I would love to read this physically, so I think next time I'm at a bookshop I'm going to pick it up because I feel like it's something I want to reread. I did find the only thing that kind of knocked off half a star was essentially how all of the characters' lives impact each other. I did feel like it got a bit much at the end, like it kind of felt like all of the links were kind of piling and piling on top of each other, whereas I like it kind of when it's like subtle little links thrown in. I just felt it was a bit much at the end, but apart from that I thought it was great. Okay, we're nearing the end. I think we're kind of on to March books now. So the next book that I read is One of Us is Next by Karen M. McManus. Let me try that again. Karen M. McManus. There we go. This is the second book in the One of Us is Lying series. My friend Laura got me onto this. I loved the first one. Loved it. This one didn't quite hit it for me. This was a 3 stars, and I was so gutted that I didn't love it as much as I loved the first one. I felt like Maeve lost some of her sass, and that's what I really loved about her character in the first book. I just felt like she got a bit bland. I felt like a lot of the other characters ended up being quite 2D. A lot of people have kind of said the fact that this book doesn't live up to the first book, which is a shame because I really do want to continue the series, but I just felt like it wasn't as good as the first one. Yeah, that's it mainly. I just felt I wasn't as gripped. Like I felt like the mystery was quite basic. I guess the person in like the first third of the book, which is very disappointing because with the other one I really didn't, I kind of thought I might have got it, and then there was a whole twist that I wasn't expecting, but this one was just really guessable. I do, however, love McManus's writing style, and I'll definitely be picking up the rest of the series and her other books because I do really enjoy her twists. Okay, we're on to the 4th series Unfortunate Events book. This is The Miserable Mill, and I gave this one a 3 stars. It went back down. It just got ridiculous. I like ridiculous storylines, but this just got too ridiculous. I was just like, really? Really? Are we really falling for this? Are we really being this stupid? I like the fact that in these books, the adults are pretty stupid and the kids are the clever ones. But even the kids, where I was like, come on guys. I think as well, this got a little bit Three Bears-esque in the way people talk. It'll be like, Violet will say something, and then Klaus will say something, and then Sunny will say something, and it just got quite tiresome. And I hadn't really picked that up in any of the other books, so I don't know why it made an appearance in this bit, but it did. So anyway, 3 stars. We're moving on from this one quite quickly. Okay, we're on the last 4 books, guys. Luckily, this next one picked things up for me. So I read The Last Devil to Die by Richard Osman. I just love this series so much. I think it's fab. I love the characters, they feel like old friends. This one got a bit deep at points, made me get a bit teary and broke my heart a bit. We love it when it breaks my heart. Osman can really do no wrong. The only thing I think I felt, this was a 4.5. It's not the lowest one. The first book was a 4 star for me, but this was a 4.5, so not as low. It didn't do anything crazy wrong. This was very different. Let's start off with this. I love the fact that every single book is different in terms of the mystery from the next one. I don't feel like he repeats himself really. This kind of focuses on a murder to do with drug trafficking and things like that, which I thought was a really interesting take from the 3rd book, which was it was more gang related. There were drugs involved, but it was more kind of heavy on the gang stuff. So the only thing that I felt I knocked off half a star was because I did guess who the murderer was. And I think I guessed it about halfway through, but I still wanted to read it because I was like, even if it is the case, I love it anyway. I love his writing. And that's the only reason why. Apart from that, it was just brilliant again. Really, really enjoyed it. And I cannot wait. He's got a new series coming out. So exciting. I just think he was just born to be a writer. I just think he's fabulous. Okay, the next book is one that I was meant to finish last year and I didn't quite get there. I finished the complete novels of Sherlock Holmes. I love Sherlock Holmes. I just find he's just a comfort blanket type of mystery. Same with Poirot, like always a comfort blanket. Always a comfort blanket. And I'm really glad I did this, and I'm really glad I read through all of them. I feel like I won't be keeping the books in terms of like the whole novels, but I will definitely rebuy like the case book and I can't remember the other ones, like the short stories, because I feel like that's when Arthur Conan Doyle's writing really comes into fruition. I know he wanted to write more long form stuff, but I feel like his short form is much better. I did enjoy The Hand of the Baskervilles though. That was the one long form book in here that I really enjoyed. So yeah, so I can tick that off my bucket list that I've done that. I would recommend it. I would recommend, if you do like mysteries, to give it a go. The first couple of books are a bit shaky, but once you get past them, it's really good. Okay, so the last book that I read at the end of March was Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi, I think. This has been on my TBR for so long, and I've heard such amazing things about it, and it's kind of perceived as like a modern classic. I knew that it was gonna be good, and it was really good. This was a 4.5 for me. I wanted to kind of go into it without knowing much about it, but what a ride. It was such a ride. So this follows two sisters and their descendants, and every single chapter is a new character. What I really enjoyed was how I wanted to almost read more about some of the characters. Like, she really gripped me with those characters. I wanted to find out what happened to them after, but I felt like she didn't over egg it, which was really great. Some of the characters really broke me. Like, some of these stories really kind of had me. Can't believe, I think again this was was this a debut? Yeah, it's her first novel. It's really strong. It's really strong. So the only thing that made me knock off half a star, and it sounds really petty, but I think I would have appreciated a time stamp along with the character names, because what happens is it goes, let me find it at the start of a chapter. It will be like the start of the chapter and it will say the character name. But I think I really love the visualization of historical fiction. I love the world building and creating all those references, society, culture, things like that. And I was missing that because sometimes I didn't know where we were in history. I knew that we kind of started, I think it was like the 15th century, 16th century. And I think I would have appreciated just a bit more for my visualization. That's just me. I think it would have been a 5-star read if it had that. So yeah, please do let me know if there are any books that you have read this year and any particular favorites, ones that you think I should pick up. Let me know. As always, thank you so much for joining me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you would like more book content, as well as some of the other things I do on this channel as well. And I will see you in my next video. Mwah. Bye.